Hi, this is Jack from Spitfire Audio's customer experience team. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to set up Kontakt multiple outputs. Multiple outputs provide us with a greater flexibility when it comes to monitoring a sound. For example, stemming out a particular microphone into a 5.1 configuration would be an incredibly useful option. They can also be stemmed into different tracks in your DAW for mixing. And a final option is they can be used to stem different libraries out into different tracks if you're using Kontakt as a host for multiple libraries. Firstly, it's really important to set up these outputs before you load any patch in Kontakt. The reason being is you would have to reload that patch in order to make the instrument see the multiple outputs. Also, you may have to reboot the plugin in your DAW for the DAW to see the outputs from Kontakt. If we go up to the workspace options at the top of Kontakt, we can choose the outputs. By default, you'll see a stereo and 4 auxiliaries. The stereo is the default output to 1 and 2 of Kontakt. By clicking the plus button, we can increase the number of outputs. And we can also determine the number of channels per output. In this case, I'm going to choose 2 channels for 7 different outputs. By clicking at the bottom of the channel, we can then change the output of Kontakt to increment each output. Once this has been done, you can save the current output section for all formats, meaning you'll never have to set this up again. Once the outputs have been set up, we can load a patch. The first thing I want to do now I've loaded a patch is to demonstrate how to assign a microphone's output to the surrounds in a 5.1 configuration. By clicking the A symbol for the ambient microphones, we can then choose an output that we've created. In this instance, I'm going to choose stereo number 2, which is routed to output 3 and 4 of Kontakt. If I now go to Pro Tools and the input of this auxiliary, we can make the plugin stereo 2 from Kontakt. This means when I change the microphone to the ambient microphone and play some notes, it now comes down through my surrounds. If I was then to change the output of this auxiliary to virtual 3 and 4, which is the surround setup in my configuration, I will then have the pizzicato outputting the ambient microphones in my surrounds. If I was to then add the tree back in, which is currently set up to be stereo 1, I now have the tree microphones in my LR and my room ambience in my surrounds. The next thing I want to demonstrate is loading a second instrument into this instance of Kontakt and keeping the outputs totally separate. By default, Kontakt naturally increments the MIDI channel. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to leave MIDI channel set to number 2 because I want to control these libraries independently from one another. However, I'm going to change the output of the cello at the top to stereo number 2. In Pro Tools, I'm now going to create a new instrument track and call it cello. On this brand new cello track that I've created, we can change the input of it to be the Kontakt plugin stereo 2. This now means it's receiving the output of the cello track. On this instrument track, we now need to assign the MIDI input to be MIDI input number 2. This means this cello track now is completely isolated on its own, separate to the violin. And if we were to go back to the violin, on the pizzicatos, that track is also completely isolated. These 2 features of Kontakt are really useful, so if you have any further questions, please reach out to us at spitfireaudio.com/support. Thanks.